And we are live. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to yet another LFC Transfer Room video, LFC Transfer Room stream. I am Dan, and I am joined by who is allegedly, and I haven't said this, but it's allegedly the most handsome man in the planet. That is Mr. Drew, who's right next to me. How's it going, Drew? How are you, man?
I'm doing good, Dan. I mean, I'll take any compliment I can get waking up from coffee, but I don't know. I definitely say there's plenty of Liverpool player candidates that aspire to look as clean as them. That's definitely not my forte, but happy to be part of the American crew representing LFC Transfer Room today. How are you doing yourself, Dan?
Doing absolutely amazing, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, Drew. Today we're going to be doing a little different stream. We weren't as prepared because we had to change things up last minute, but we're still here. We're still here for you. We're going to bring tons of news, transfer stuff. We're going to be discussing a few things here and there. So get involved in the chat. Make sure you're sending some comments. Make sure you're sending some questions. We're going to be reacting to them live. And yeah, let's get started. First things first, we're gonna be talking. Do you want Drew? Do you want to discuss about the main thing, which is Jude Bellingham, at the beginning or at the end?
Let's go right into that. I think the big thing around that's the transfer fee, and I think that's a pretty juicy debate. So I'm curious to where you stand on Jude Bellingham, how much you'd go or how high you'd go to get him.
Absolutely. All right, so let's get right into it. So first of all, for first things first, hello, Bojack. How's it going? One of our regular viewers. Jen is also here. Ant, our designer, is here. And also video content producer and soon to be Twitter admin as well. How's it going, everybody? Thomas is also here. How's it going, everybody? So, Jude Bellingham, it has been reported recently by the ever reliable The Athletic, the news outlet, that Borussia Dortmund actually have placed a price of 150 million euros, which is equivalent to around 132 million pounds, I believe it was, that I was checking and reading, which is a staggering amount. 130 million pounds nowadays can probably get you three or two to three top players. I don't know what you think about this, Drew. First things first, do you agree that he's worth that much? Not that we should go for that price, but do you agree that he's worth that much?
If it's like a Van Dyke kind of thing, like when everybody was looking at that transfer fee, they were saying it's ridiculous to pay that amount for a center back. And quickly, Van Dyke proved his worth, his quality, and no one was questioning the transfer fee sense. Especially when you get, was it Kepa in after that, and Harry Maguire over to Manchester United. So I think it really comes down to if he delivers the goods. Like it's an extravagant fee. It's one that I'm not comfortable paying, but that being said, I like what I see in Bellingham, and if he hits the ground running and reaches the heights we all think he could, then it's whatever you get him at, you want him at your club. Especially Liverpool fan, the amount of time in his career ahead that could potentially be a duo with Trent Alexander-Arnold, where you see them playing the rest of their careers at Liverpool. So I think it comes down to if if he delivers the goods, which is a bit of a way to hedge that question of is he worth that amount of money. But I think it's ultimately at the end of the day, it's if the player delivers, and that demands the fee. You see it with Salah in his contract. If the player delivers, then you're not concerned about money. But does 130 million pounds sound too high for you, or would you rather get two players in for that cost?
I don't know, man. It's such a huge risk when we're talking about 130 million pounds. And then there's a few comments as well, by the way, here in the stream. People saying that it's still a bargain. His shirt sales will probably make up for it, which is probably true, of course. But again, this is a huge risk that you're taking. Like we were saying a few moments ago, you can probably get 2 to 3 players for that amount of price, for that amount. And in fact, I'm going to be asking you soon if you can name me a few players that you would rather take instead of Jude Bellingham until you sum up that 130 million euros. But first, as always, we got to thank our very regular Jen, who just sent another super sticker in the chat. And by the way, she says, sign him up. No debate. He is ours. Now, I'm going to pose this question to you, Drew, and I'm going to pose this question to you, Dan, and everybody in the chat. Please make sure you also join in this part. But if you don't get Jude Bellingham for 130 million euros, could you give me a few options that you would rather go for until you get to that 130 million euros amount? I'm going to go first so I can give you guys some time to think. But I'm going to go ahead and say, first of all, Nicolo Barella, 80 million euros, 80 million pounds, actually. That's going to be my first pick. Then I'm going to go for a forward option. Nowadays, there's very limited options up front. But if you make me choose and probably think, I'm going to go for a winger, I'm going to go ahead and say Jeremy Doku for 30 million pounds, who could probably be valued for even less. Where are we at? 80 plus 30, that's 110. You still got 20 left. I'm going to say let's go for another midfielder. Juri Tielemans, who, by the way, I think his contract is up at the end of the window, at the end of the season. But if we go for him in January, let's say he's 15 to 20 million pounds. That's 150 million. 3 players right there. We're probably even over paying for them, but I will rather go for someone like that. What about you, Drew? What do you have in mind?
Well, first, with the price for Jude Bellingham, I'm also concerned about if he hits the ground running or not, because I think we can all agree that we don't need just one midfielder. We need probably 2 to 3 in the next transfer window. Probably we're not going to buy in winter. I don't see that happening. So summer needs to be a huge transfer market for us. So my concern with Bellingham is if he takes a while to settle in. Let's say Nunez, Darwin Nunez is an example. He hasn't hit the ground running. I ultimately hope and back him to come good over time. I think Klopp meant to put him into the team and, kind of treat him like Fabinho or Robertson, where you ease him in, you get him used to playing the system and training and build up his confidence with appearances here or there. But thrown into the deep end, that can be a huge ask for key players in the team. And if you bring Bellingham in, he's got to go straight into the side and perform. So I would hope and he'd carry a brunt of that responsibility in the midfield when you have aging players like Henderson, Milner, Thiago, who isn't always fit, and then you can go down the lines of players who are fit for the club. Valverde is an amazing shout. Ideally, I'd hope to see us actually go big for once and get Bellingham and Barella, or Bellingham and Valverde. Something like that would be huge for the club, and then you could see a lot of optimism around that. I'd like to see 2 players in. If it wasn't Bellingham, I think you have to get Barella at that point. You can't appease the fans or basically the ambition of the club with a few lesser known signings when you failed to get Tchouaméni and then Bellingham as your number 1 targets. You can't just go for the bargain bin at that point. So I like the shout of Barella. I like the shout of Valverde. And that's the quality that we really need into the side. And we need to start seeing how that works out in the future, not just, kind of relying on, old favorites of the club and, just relying on players that are consistently injured. So Barella and Valverde would be the points for me.
So if I were to ask you, Drew, and everybody else in the chat, question for you. What do you think is a fair value for Jude Bellingham? Hand on heart, what do you think he should be valued at? Not saying how much we should pay for him, just how much do you think he's valued at?
For me, I said in our group chat on the WhatsApp that the markups aside, everything, but I think a fair price would honestly be 90 million pounds. Like, you look at Jadon Sancho coming into United around a similar fee. I know we're not going to get anywhere near that price tag for Jude Bellingham, but I honestly think that reflects a fair price for him and something that both clubs should be happy with. But I think sort of similar to the Mo Salah tax when we bought Alisson, when we got Salah on the cheap, Roma kind of, we're like, well, you're gonna pay out to get Alisson because we're not getting robbed twice. And I think Dortmund's in a similar position right now with with how they let go of Holland. I know, the transfer fee was around 50 million. That was reported. Probably a lot of money went to his agent, and I think the word was his father got some money out of that deal. But it didn't seem that Dortmund got a lot out of that deal, and they might be looking at how much money they can get. If Bellingham's their star player now, it doesn't look like they have too many players that can command that 100+ million price tag, and they might try to milk Bellingham for all it's worth and hold out for the highest bidder. So I honestly, realistically, wouldn't go higher than 115 million. I think at that point, as we're seeing in the chat, Nisa said you can get two midfielders of high class quality for anything above 120 million pounds, or you're approaching that realistic possibility. So for me, it's 115 absolute tops. But where are you sitting on this this debate, Dan?
You're saying 115 or 15?
15. 15.
Okay. That sounds pretty fair. I mean, I'm going to be pulling up some comments here because I do agree with Thomas Ray, who says 70. So obviously we need to understand that the market has, risen like crazy, is exploding and whatnot. But for the player that he is at the moment, it started for Borussia Dortmund, a German side. He is a complete midfielder, whatnot. I think a fair value for Jude is 70. Now, how much will he cost? I think that's a different thing, which is obviously what you were bringing up for discussion. And I think a fair value for him is just what you said. Jadon Sancho assessment, Jadon Sancho value, which was 90 million euros, 100 million pounds, something like that. I feel like that's the max that you should pay for a player. I mean, when you look at the likes of Virgil van Dijk, regardless of the time that when he was at Southampton, where he wasn't considered one of the best in the world or the best in the world, you paid for the best in the world at the moment in time, which was 75 million. I think that's the top market for a top player. That's how much you should go for someone that is world class. Now, if you're going for 100 million player, not only you're getting a world class player, but you're also getting a player that is going to last you 10 more years. But if you go above the 100 million mark, I think that's just a mistake. I think that no team in the world should pay more than 100 million pounds, which is equivalent to 120 million euros or something like that. But anyways, no team in the world should pay more than 100 million pounds unless you're getting the likes of Mbappe, unless you're getting the likes of James Milner. No, I'm just kidding. But you know what I'm trying to say. Only unless you're getting an elite player, then only then you should pay more than 100 million. But yeah, a lot of people are saying 70. Anthony says 100. Matthias says 90. I do agree. And Jen says pay anything, whatever it takes. So it's going to be an interesting thing. I would like to ask you, Drew, if you do not get Jude Bellingham, would you be okay with the likes of not Nicolo Barella, but maybe Tielemans, Caicedo? What else? Who else have we been linked with? Players of that caliber. I think it was not Onana. That the Borussia player from the German league is a youngster. Well, would you be okay getting other players instead of Jude, or do you think we should only go for the likes of Jude? What do you think?
I think we need more than just Jude. I think I've seen a comment from a Google reviewer thinking like, clueless if you think he's the complete midfielder, and just because United were dumb enough to pay 80 mil for Sancho doesn't mean Bellingham is worth 120 million. I think it goes back to the amount of pressure that you're going to put on a player to carry the midfield, and I would love to see Bellingham in the team. That's where I think the argument isn't about his ability, it's about his future and what he brings in that capacity, because you're going to pay top dollar for top class talent. It kind of always goes that way. I'm thinking back to Renato Sanchez, the Portuguese player. When Bayern bought him, they paid absolute top dollar for him. I think it was like 50 million, something like that, after he had one good Euros. And you're always going to see prices just jacked up because of that, and also because Liverpool are kind of have put themselves in the situation where every club knows that we need a midfielder. So you're automatically going to get clubs saying, well, this is what you really need, and we're going to add 20% or whatever the math turns out, just so you can have them. We kind of put ourselves in the position. Almost reminds me of Arsenal's contract situation, where we don't hold the power in terms of negotiations. I think the start of the season kind of showed that showed our hand, where we can't rely on the midfield we have now. So I wouldn't want to put all the eggs in one basket for Bellingham. As to your question of would I be happy with the likes of Tielemans or some sort of mid-table esque signings. I think we need one marquee signing. I think we've seen that with Allison and Van Dijk, where we know we need someone that we can build the team around, or we can, have as an absolute rock at the back, both between the posts and in the center defense. We need that in the midfield. So I think it has to be either Bellingham or Barella, but we also need players to come in besides that, because, Henderson's not getting any younger. Thiago's not getting any younger, always injured as well. Harvey Elliott and Carvalho are definitely promising, but we're not sure what their best position is, how they work best in the team. And, they're more forward attacking players that played on the wings as well. Declan Rice would probably be way too expensive. Unfortunately, he'd be a great signing if you could get him at a fair price, but that's not going to happen. But the quality of Tielemans, it's like I wouldn't want him in there in the first team. I think he'd be a great bench option. I thought he would have been steal, or maybe not steal. I didn't want him, but at least he's got Premier League experience. He could come in and possibly Klopp. I think you're relying on that point when we're going for that quality of player for Klopp to bring them to the next level, like a Mane or a Salah or Robertson. Countless examples of what Klopp does, but I'd like to think we could make one marquee signing and then add one or two of those kind of Mane, Salah, Robertson quality, where the potential is there and Klopp can bring him to the best. But what would you be happy with, and what would you be looking to get in for our midfield?
So that's what we're going to be discussing actually right now, and I'm going to be giving you my thoughts, and we're going to be asking you some questions as well. But first, I want to throw two quick rapid questions for you to answer. And obviously, by the way, I also want to touch on this. One of our viewers offered three options, which is Enzo Fernandez, Joao Gomez, and also Sangare, or Sangare. I think he has like a little accent on the E. Anyways, we're going to be touching on that as well. But before we go into that, Drew, would you consider Jude Bellingham to be a world-class player?
I'd consider him to be a world-class talent, not a world-class player yet. He's yet to have the career. Was he 19 years old? You're talking about Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar, Mbappe, Haaland quality, and Bellingham has the potential to reach that bracket, but at the moment it's just potential. He's an exciting player. He's got all the right skills and talents, but he's world-class potential at this moment. Not world-class player.
Well, quickly, let's try to run down these three options that, by the way, one of the viewers sent. So Enzo Fernandez, by the way, who has been followed by Liverpool for 2-3 years now since he was at River Plate. He recently joined Benfica, and a recent report from, I believe it was Bruno Fernandez from UOL, Bruno Andrade, not Bruno Fernandez, the football player. He says, and he stated that even though Liverpool are interested, he currently has an 120 million euro release clause. So 21 years old, but a crazy release clause for me. I don't think is possible. Sangare recently renewed with that Netherlands team, PSV. Although supposedly he's going to be available on a pretty affordable price, like 35 million, 40 million, which is pretty decent. Not a bad shout. It seems like the interest has come down a little bit. Joao Gomez, I haven't personally seen much from, but it seems like a very much Matthews Nunez scenario where you don't know what you're getting for a similar price. He could be available for the 45 to 50 million price tag, but when he comes to the Premier League, he could either be a baller like Matthews Nunez is being right now, or he could be a player that just doesn't perform to the standard. So I feel like that's a even bigger gamble there. But you know, those are pretty good shouts, by the way. When you ask me, Drew, I think we should go for Caicedo, either in January or next summer, because he's going to be available for. I think Caicedo's probably the same standard of player that Jude Bellingham is. The only issue is that Jude Bellingham is way more advanced in his development, and obviously we're barely seeing Caicedo, and he's barely starting to make his mark, even though he already did it for the national team incredibly well. But I feel like you're getting the similar type of player. He has all the qualities that Bellingham has, as well as potential because he has 19 years old, Caicedo. He's going to be available for something like 50 million, 55 million come next summer. Regardless of what people are hearing that he was available for 100 million that Brighton were asking for. That's just a ridiculous price tag that Brighton put in order to drive interest away, you know? So that would be my choice. I know that we're getting tons of messages from the in the comments from the viewers. Barella, Gomez, which is I think the Portuguese player. What else we got? Drew, Neymar world class. That's what Matthias is saying. Really?
To give quotes on that, Matthias, I meant when he was a teenager. When Barca got him, like that point in his career, you're paying top dollar for him because of what he did in Brazil, and his seasons at Barca were arguably the best in his career. Definitely by no means now, and definitely he wasn't my favorite player. I did not like his antics on the field and his antics off the field. So, but his talent and his ability as a footballer, especially at Barcelona, showed that he was world class, at least for that time in his career. And that's where I'm talking about paying that much money for, a teenager or young 20s. But as for the three names you said, Dan, I don't know much about Enzo Fernandez or João Gomez. Sangare for me would be an absolute, that's who you buy along with a Barella or a Bellingham. You get a player like that who's, at that 24 age, 25, 23 age range where, that's the kind of player that Klopp takes to the next level. I think PSV is a good club, and he's at the age where he's had enough experience in his career where he'd be ready to make that next jump. As for Fernandez and Gomez, I haven't seen much of them. I just know that Fernandez is in the Argentinian league and Gomez is in the Brazilian league, and that'd be a huge ask to ask them to come to the Premier League and hit the ground running. So at their age and the price tags that you threw out, I don't think that'd be worth pursuing. If you could get them for a deal, then that could be a player Klopp wants to develop over time. But I think we do need players that can slot in right away and play relatively quickly into their Liverpool careers. And for me, that'd be Sangare. And we need someone like Barella or Bellingham along with that. But Sangare is a great shout.
Absolutely. And guys, we have already reached our 20-minute mark. By the way, we're not leaving yet. There's a little break that we're taking just to tell everybody to make sure to go and subscribe, like this video, and make sure you're recommending the LFC Transfer Room to anybody that's a hardcore Red fan that likes discussions, analysis, transfer talk. We bring you everything you need. But now let's start shifting into a different topic. So, Drew, and actually one of the viewers commented on it, so we're going to be actually mentioning who it was. Ken Pachi, I think is his name. Anyway, so recently, a couple of days ago, there was a Brazilian outlet that came out with a news saying that Atletico Mineiro are currently looking for potential buyers, and at the top of that list of potential buyers, there was FSG, surprisingly, who, by the way, at the start of the year, if many of you guys remember, they added the Red Ball investment group they started working together, and one of their main goals was to buy a club, not necessarily a feeder club for Liverpool, but they just want to buy another club. And many shouts starting coming around, some La Liga teams, I think it was Elche, or I don't know how to say their name, some Portuguese teams. But now the latest one has been Atletico Mineiro, who is the current Brazilian champions. Many will know them because Ronaldinho used to play there, and then many, many talents have come from there. But Drew, what do you think of this? I mean, Is this a positive thing that FSG and Red Ball, the investment group, are starting to do, or do you think that the financials are now driving to somewhere else and maybe it could become something negative?
Yeah, for me, it's a bit frustrating. I think Redbird, when they came in and bought shares of the club, I was very excited. You know, the Nike deal, stuff like that. I thought there'd be a huge influx of money, and maybe that's just timing. Maybe we'll see that next summer. I'm hoping that's the case. But when you see articles like FSG interested in buying Atletico Mineiro, I have to say, if you're going to buy that club for a couple hundred mil, why didn't you put that into into your teams that you already have? I get it's a business. I get you're trying to maximize. You're trying to have growth, but you can't ignore the assets that got you to where you are. Where you have the potential to buy clubs or more clubs, credit to FSG to bring us to where we are today. You know, there's arguments and valid arguments about whether they've done enough, but you can't argue with the fact with where they picked us up to where we are today is an incredible job. And you could put a lot of that credit to Jurgen Klopp and what he's done with the team, but FSG were the guys that brought him in. So they do get credit in that. But when you see articles like this and then the articles about them looking to get their own TV rights or a Super League kind of scenario, that's a whole different topic on the Super League. I think I'd have many unpopular opinions there. But when you just start seeing them focused off the field more when we're in a situation that is just begging for money to be put into transfer, I think it's frustrating as a supporter to see that. I don't know much about the business side, what that could bring to the club, but that would definitely be a long-term thing for developing players, etc. So I'm not happy seeing that news when they're not putting money in the club. Put money in the club and then buy another club. That's the only way that's okay with me.
Interesting shout, Drew there, because obviously we also have to consider the fact that if FSG or Red Ball investment group end up investing into Atletico Mineiro, which by the way have so many Brazilian talents, up and coming talents, it could serve as a feeder club, like we were saying, to Liverpool, like Southampton was before. No, but could actually be a feeder club where we just send players on loan. Although I don't think we've been very successful sending players on loan to Brazil. Last one I could remember off is maybe Allen. You know, when we had Alan de Sousa, the midfielder that couldn't get a work permit. I mean, he's now there. He stayed there. I believe he's still playing in the Brazilian league. So it could be a very interesting decision for FSG. Someone was saying right here about FSG that they are hardly putting any money into us, and most of their money are going into the Red Sox. I agree to a point, but I remember that Damon, by the way, quick shout out to Damon, and he did a piece with a Red Sox fan, and he was saying that Red Sox are currently going through a similar process than the one that Liverpool are going through, where they had their peak, now they're going downfall, the team is not investing as much, so maybe they're investing more into their NASCAR group. I heard that they're pretty big and popular over there in that side, investing tons of money and whatnot. But that could be a discussion for a different day. By the way, Haler, how's it going? When another of our regular viewers were here. By the way, guys, hope you guys are enjoying the stream so far. We're gonna go for maybe 5-6 more minutes. We're gonna be touching on Luis Suarez going back to Liverpool because Anthony mentioned it in the chat. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Don't forget to recommend this video. And please let us know how we're doing. Give us feedback. We're going to be improving as time goes by. So next on the list is Luis Suarez back to Liverpool. There is no concrete rumor linking the Uruguayan back to Liverpool, of course, but it has been said that as soon as the season ends, Luis Suarez will become a free agent and he will be leaving his club, Nacional. So that's an interesting pick right there. There's been many rumors saying that Aston Villa, managed by Steven Gerrard, by the way, were interested in bringing Luis Suarez. But the question is, Drew, would you take a Luis 30, is it 35 or something like that, year old Luis Suarez, who obviously is not at his peak anymore. He's pretty old. Back at Liverpool, would he even get any game time? What do you think?
I think he would. I don't think he's coming in starting right away unless he somehow rolls back the clock and absolutely kills it like Barcelona for him or even first season at Atletico. But I would be interested in bringing him in no more than like 90,000 a week, something like that. He'd have to be realistic about what his wages would be. But I think bringing him in the club, especially like a like an intangible aspect to that would be helping Darwin Nunez settle in. I think him as a mentor to Darwin Nunez, having somebody from his home country who's done it before in the club around him can only help with his confidence. As for his abilities as a player, I think having Luis Suarez as an option to come off the bench with, 30 minutes, 25 minutes left in the game, even 15 to 10, everyone who is a Liverpool supporter who was following during his times at the club knows he's an absolute animal and would terrorize defenses. I don't think he could do that for a full 90 minutes. He's definitely a throw him on as a late substitute and let him do his thing kind of player. But I think having his attitude and his experience in the club would be a huge asset for this side at the moment. He's a winner, and you need winners' mentalities in the club. And unlike Cristiano Ronaldo, I think he wouldn't cause any sort of dissent among the ranks. So I would definitely take him in, considering all those aspects. And also, if we're starting a 37-year-old James Milner, I think 35, 36-year-old Luis Suarez can do just as good a job at sort of navigating, leading the club, and possibly offer more. But Darwin Nunez kind of mentor would be the selling point for me.
Interesting shout right there. I mean, Haler doesn't even like the fact of bringing Luis Suarez back to Liverpool. Anthony was saying he could be a potential Origi Minamino replacement, which, by the way, Anthony, I need to disagree, because what was that one factor that both Minamino and Origi had, aside of versatility, is that they were both quick. Maybe one was faster than the other, but they were at least quick. With Luis Suarez, you're not getting a fast player anymore. I mean, he's so old at this point. I don't think he could even last 90 minutes. I was checking on his stats, actually, as we were speaking, and it seems like he has 4 goals so far. And it's pretty difficult to find the stats for the Uruguayan league. But from what I've seen, I don't know how many stars he's had, but at least his side, Uruguay, has played 9 matches so far. So, I mean, let's just assume he started on all of those 9 matches, which I highly doubt. 4 goals is still not a bad contribution to the team. Now, again, that's a Uruguayan league, so it isn't the same standard. The question would be, do we need a striker, not a winger? Do we need a striker?
Honestly, I think Jota is going to be the player to lead us forward. I think it was interesting decision, and I think it comes down to the situation we were in for Darwin Nunez. But my thought always was, if you're going to buy a player and have to change your system to fit that player needs to hit the ground running. That player needs to demand the system change. Like Mo Salah came in and demanded that. Mane, we thought he was going to be a replacement for Mane, or not a replacement, a backup for Mane. And then it turned out that Salah became the player we built our team around, essentially. So to bring in a player like Darwin Nunez for that amount of money, again, I thought Klopp's ideal would be to build him in gradually. But that asks a lot of question around system changes, like what you're trying to do. And I think we're seeing that kind of anxious betting in time where it didn't quite work out as we hoped. And again, I think he'll come good over time. But are we going to get a backup for Nunez in terms of like a traditional number 9 or someone in the mold? I thought Nunez could potentially be like a Fernando Torres heir and the same guile of player. But I think Jota's going to lead the line, and I think it depends. If we're going to bet hard on Nunez, then yeah, we need a backup in the like of Nunez, where we're going to stick with that system and get someone in similar to him. And at that point, I think we probably need someone with a little more experience. To go into that role, like an Isak that Newcastle picked up. I thought he would have been another great if we're trying to get players. If we're trying to play in that kind of way and switch up the system, then we need more backup in that regards, because Nunez kind of seems to be the odd man out in the lineup. Otherwise, we need another player like Jota or another player like Firmino, which is a hard ask. But where are you falling on that side, Dan?
I don't. Yeah, I do agree in the same fact. I don't think we need a striker at the moment. We have Jota, we have Darwin Nunez. I mean, even Salah from time to time could play as a striker. I wouldn't go as far as saying that the likes of Harvey Elliott or Luis Diaz or Fabio Carvalho could play as a striker, even though they can. But a lot of people have been giving that shout. I don't think it would be a good thing to see them as strikers. But yeah, I mean, totally your shouts. Alexander Isaac. We had Patson Dak, as someone was mentioning, they would take him. We had the discussion on a previous stream, and supposedly he's been doing pretty average for Leicester. We all wanted Dak, of course, but it has not happened. So far, we're doing pretty good with views. By the way, almost 40 people joining the stream. We keep growing. Evening, everybody. Evening, everybody. How's it going? We also can remember the fact of Christopher Nkunku, who's our RB Leipzig. Who could play as a winger, as a 10, as a striker. But I think we need to concentrate on looking for a winger. If you ask me, and this is a very, very controversial opinion, I think we need a winger more than the fact that we need a midfielder in the current moment in time. And I know hopefully there's not many people going crazy at me, because we're going through a midfield crisis at the moment because of injuries. But just like the time when we had this issue back in a couple of years back with the defensive issue, when all these players started getting injured, I do think this is an unlucky situation. I mean, yes, we do have injury-prone players, but what are the odds that Liverpool loses Thiago, Henderson, Keita, Chamberlain, like almost in the same month, you know? I do see that when I look at our frontline man, I see a different Salah, that even though he's creating more chances, I don't see more goals from him. Luis Diaz, who is one of our most dangerous players, I feel like he needs a little bit more adjusting and adaptation to the league before we see the best out of him. Nunez, we can barely speak about him. He's had like 6 games, 5 games. So I feel like we need another winger. Anthony for me was the perfect player, regardless of all these dribbles that he does under Klopp. I feel like he would have brought in something different, and that's why I brought to you the option of Jeremy Doku. Guys, we are approaching the 37-minute mark. We're gonna go for a few more minutes, so don't get too comfortable, but still make sure you keep sending those comments in. We have Drew and myself are gonna keep reading everything. What you think, your thoughts. Jen says, what we need is midfielders and replacements for Lord Origi, which, by the way, I don't know how Divock Origi has been doing in the Italian league. What I do know is that Minamino recently had a wonderful performance when he had a goal and an assist. Everybody was shouting his name. Incredible video. If you haven't seen it, make sure you go and check it out. Origi, I don't know, Drew. I saw you shaking your head. Have you seen anything on Origi? Heard anything about him?
Yeah, I think I saw some posts about him being. I think Italian journalist dubbed him the worst signing ever for AC Milan, or the worst signing of the season. Unfortunately, I don't think they know what they bought when they got him, but he kind of showed that for us. A bit of erratic form prior to his injury against Everton, that horrific injury. He was absolutely flying. So I wonder how that affected his career, but he was kind of came in and did the business for us at odd moments. He when he got a run of games, he didn't always deliver. It was a bit patchy for him, but he came up in big games. So I think he just needs to have faith in him and see what he can do with almost like a full season of play. But wanted to touch on Anthony's post about Ivan Toney as a back or as a replacement for Firmino, and that's exactly what I'm thinking in terms of if we're looking for another striker. If we're going with the Nunez kind of ilk, Tony would be a wonderful addition to the squad and could keep Nunez out of the team if he hits the ground running. But we'll see what the situation is at the end of the season. But we definitely need midfielders, and I agree with you. We need to basically start ushering in the next generation. And you see, like, if we're so heavily reliant on Salah, and I still think he'll perform for us over the next couple of years, but we definitely need someone pushing his spot and getting into the team. So, and Kunku for me, I know he plays on the other side and can play in the center, but we need to start bringing in more players. The squad needs a refresh. I think you already see that with the likes of Jota, Diaz, Nunez coming in, Carvalho, and Elliott for the future. So you're already seeing that sort of transition phase, but we need more players who can come in. And I think you're right. I think it's a great point about the injury crisis. I think we could all expect our midfielders to pick up injuries at some point in the season, but for them to happen all at the same time, that's terrible luck. It was there, it was on the roulette of possibilities, but it was very unfortunate that everyone in our midfield pretty much came up injured. We definitely need to get one, or at least one. Two would be ideal, three would be amazing, but if we could get two in, and then the likes of a winger and a striker, and that would be an amazing window.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like we need like you said, in your words, a squad refresh. We need to get rid of a lot of players in the midfield, and we need to bring the same amount of players. Because if you look on paper, the numbers of midfield players that we have a surplus of numbers of midfielders. The issue is that we have too many unreliable or injury-prone midfielders. So I feel like we need to get rid of 3 midfielders, and we need to bring 3 reliable, non-injury-prone midfielders, and we should be fine. In fact, probably just 2, because like I said, we have so many midfielders. Thiago, Fabinho, Henderson, Fabio Carvalho, Harvey Elliott, Naby Keita, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
Curtis Jones.
So long. Curtis Jones. What's the name of the new kid? Vajetic, the youngster that had just come through the ranks. Vajetic, yeah. And then we have a few on loan, Players Morden. I mean, you name it. So if we could at least get rid of, at the end of the season, not yet now, James Milner, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, go as far as say Naby Keita, maybe Curtis Jones on loan or whatever we decide, and bring 2 to 3 players in. I mean, we should be fine. That's what we need. The issue is not numbers of players in midfield. The issue is we don't have reliable options to choose from. So, but again, I stick with my guns when I say that we need a winger desperately. We need someone that can just add more pressure into Luis Diaz and Salah. Maybe not Luis Diaz. He's doing amazing. But which brings me to my last point, and we only have 3 minutes left. Mudryk, I believe it's Ukrainian winger. I haven't watched much of him, but the hype from Mudryk from Shakhtar Donetsk has been going crazy this year. Everybody wants him. He's such a speedy, quick dribbler, and the only reason that I know about him is because I read a quick article that was describing him. I never watched him, but supposedly everybody wants him. 21 years old. Shakhtar Donetsk is not going to be asking for too much money because not only the league, but the age. It's not going to make them ask for 100 million, maybe 30, 40 million pounds. But that could be possibly a good option. Drew, would you like a player like that caliber? I'm pretty sure you haven't watched him because nobody watches Shakhtar Donetsk, but would you like a player of that caliber?
From what you're saying, yes, I think an out-and-out winger would be absolutely necessary. Because then you're also looking at the likes of fatigue for our front line. We've seen it before where if you're relying on the same players every single game that we have to deliver the goods, that's just going to drain them. We need to have some, like when Jota came in and we had that option of Jota, Mane, Salah, Diaz, like that. I believe those acquisitions were absolutely vital for us challenging on all fronts to the end of the season. But we saw what happens with burnout. We see what happens with injuries. So to have an out-and-out winger in the side, young, fresh, coming up, to add that extra element and potentially put some players under pressure and potentially take their positions, I would have liked to see if Ukraine made the World Cup. That would have been an amazing showcase for him to, put him on the world stage. But I trust your word, and I'll be a player. I'll be keeping an eye out. Hopefully, look at some highlights and see what he has to bring. But definitely agree with you in terms of a kind of player we need to bring into the club.
Absolutely, my friend. And for everybody watching, thank you so much. Make sure you are subscribing to the LFC Transfer Room. We have reached the end of our stream. Just we're going to end it with this comment right here saying that the World Cup, which, by the way, is up ahead in just a couple months, is going to be showcasing tons and tons of talents. We're going to be keeping an eye on that. And maybe a January move for a few players could be up in the cards. Like I said before, Bruno Andrade from Rio L, the very reliable journalist, has said that Liverpool are looking to jump into the market in January. So let's see what that brings. Guys, thank you very much for watching. It's been Dan. This is Drew. And thank you for joining another LFC Transfer Room video. Hopefully, we'll see you tomorrow. Remember that we bring you a video every single day, unless something crazy happens. But we have a wonderful team of content creators. So thank you so much, Drew. Thank you so much, everybody. Hope everybody is okay and have a nice night, day, whatever it is where you're located, okay? Thank you. Have a nice day.